The Anunnaki are not internet inventions. The name is ancient, written into the religious world of Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, and Assyria. Long before UFO forums, long before paperback ancient astronaut theories, scribes pressed signs into wet clay. Some of those signs carried the names of gods who ruled heaven, earth, wisdom, judgment, and the underworld. But the Alien Race book makes a much bigger claim. It says these gods were an off-world race tied to Nibiru, human genetics, and a hidden history of Earth. That is where the mystery begins to split. Because one part of this story is solid. The Anunnaki really do belong to ancient Mesopotamian religion. Another part is modern and disputed. And one part, the Alien Race book's alleged intelligence file origin, remains unverified. This is No Aliens. We bring you everything we found, and you decide what it means. The central question is not whether the word Anunnaki is real. The question is how far the record actually goes. Does the trail stop inside ancient religion, or does it point toward something the old texts only partly preserved? The first crack appears in one of the strangest documents from ancient Mesopotamia. It is called the Sumerian King List. The best-known surviving copy is the Weld Blundell Prism, now associated with the Ashmolean Museum collection. It was written in Sumerian, but it preserves a story about kingship that moves through cities and ages. The list begins with a sentence that still feels electric. Kingship descends from heaven. Then the numbers become almost impossible to absorb. Early rulers receive reigns of 28,800 years. Another receives 36,000 years. Another receives 43,200 years. The first city is Eridu, a place later remembered as one of the oldest centers of kingship and sacred authority. Then, kingship moves from city to city, as if authority itself is being handed down, removed, and installed again. Before the flood, the reigns totaled 241,200 years. That number is not a small exaggeration. It is a scale shift so extreme that it forces a question. If you are looking for a doorway into ancient mystery, this is one. And I understand why people keep returning to it. The text does not read like a modern history textbook. It reads like memory, theology, royal legitimacy, and cosmic order braided together. That is important because ancient kingship was not just politics. A king needed more than soldiers and walls. He needed the universe to say his rule belonged there. So the popular dismissal already fails. The Anunnaki are not a modern UFO invention. The King List is not an invented internet meme. Its impossible numbers are part of the ancient record. But that still leaves the harder question. Do the ancient texts themselves point to Nibiru, spacecraft, and engineered humans? To follow that question, we need to separate three evidence lanes. First, the ancient lane. In the ancient material, the Anunnaki are divine beings within Mesopotamian religion. They belong to a world of gods, cities, rituals, kings, underworlds, and cosmic hierarchy. Names like Anu and Enki, also known as Ea, matter here. Anu stands near the high heaven of the divine order. Enki, or Ea, is tied to wisdom, waters, craft, and deep knowledge. In some traditions, the Anunnaki appear as a group of powerful deities connected with judgment and the underworld. In other contexts, the exact role shifts with period, region, and text. That shifting role matters because Mesopotamian religion was not a single frozen system. It was a living archive of cities, priests, scribes, rituals, and political claims. One important example is the Atrahasis tradition, where lower gods complain about labor and humans are created to carry the work. That does not prove a laboratory scene, but it explains why the Anunnaki story attracts ancient astronaut readers. The source material already contains creation, labor, hierarchy, and beings descending from a higher order. Those are powerful ingredients, but they are still ingredients, not a finished spacecraft report. That alone is powerful, but it is not the same as a clear ancient statement that astronauts arrived from Nibiru. Second, the Sitchin lane. In 1976, Zecharia Sitchin published The 12th Planet. His work popularized the modern Anunnaki as astronauts framework. In that framework, Nibiru follows a 3,600-year orbit. The Anunnaki come from that world. Humanity becomes part of a genetic and labor story. The claim often connects gold mining, worker creation, and the Mesopotamian theme of gods making humans serve divine needs. That connection is one reason the theory has stayed alive. It takes a real ancient theme and asks whether the myth is remembering technology. This is the version that shaped decades of books, forums, videos, and arguments. But even inside that modern lane, details matter. Sitchin's reading depends on specific translations of Mesopotamian words and planetary references. Most Assyriologists do not read those lines the same way. That disagreement does not make the question disappear. It tells us the whole case leans heavily on how ancient signs are decoded. But the third lane, the Alien Race book, does not simply repeat Sitchin. It changes the details. The Alien Race book calls them Anunakene. It gives Nibiru a 4,000-year orbit, not 3,600. It adds genetic engineering claims. It adds the creation of Zeta Reticulai beings. And it adds claims about infiltration into Egyptian dynasties. That is a major expansion beyond a simple ancient astronaut reading of Sumer. It turns the Anunnaki question into a larger, hidden history system. And this is where provenance becomes crucial. A document claim is only as strong as its trail. Who wrote it? When was it compiled? Where was it stored? How did it leave that system and reach the public? Those questions do not make the claim uninteresting. They make it investigable. This matters because contradictions inside a mystery are not boring. They tell us where to look more carefully. So now we have three things on the table: a verified ancient name, a modern ancient astronaut reading, and an unverified dossier-style claim that changes key numbers. This is a good place to pause, because from here, the claims become testable. If a planet returns every few thousand years, astronomy should have something to say. If humanity was engineered in a recent intervention, genetics should have something to say. And if an alleged file contains unique historical information, the source trail should have something to say. Astronomy gives us the first test. NASA's current Planet X or Planet 9 material describes a theoretical, unobserved outer planet. The modern Planet 9 idea comes from gravitational clues in the outer solar system, not from a confirmed, photographed planet. Researchers look at unusual orbital clustering among distant Kuiper Belt objects, far beyond Neptune. That is a very different kind of evidence from an ancient return schedule. It is mathematics, survey limits, and prediction. It is not yet a photographed disk moving across the sky. That distinction is important. A hypothesis can be serious without being confirmed. Its possible orbit is not 3,600 years. It is not 4,000 years. NASA describes a possible orbit more like 10,000 to 20,000 years. And that object has not been observed. So the modern astronomy lane does not line up neatly with either Nibiru clock. That mismatch does not answer every ancient question, but it does sharpen the claim. A returning planet with a 3,600 or 4,000-year orbit is not the same object NASA discusses as Planet 9. Genetics gives us the second test. Mainstream human origins evidence places Homo sapiens in Africa around 300,000 years ago. Fossils, archaeology, and genetic studies all point to a long, branching human story. Important fossils from Morocco, often discussed around Jebel Irhoud, push early Homo sapiens deep into Africa's past. Stone tools, migration traces, and ancient DNA then show a story that keeps unfolding across tens of thousands of years. That story does not begin with one sudden switch being flipped in Mesopotamia. It also shows known archaic admixture from Neanderthals and Denisovans. Some people living today carry small percentages of Neanderthal ancestry. Some populations also carry Denisovan ancestry, especially in parts of Oceania and Asia. That is already a strange and humbling story. Humanity is not a clean single line. It is a braided river. But it is not verified evidence of off-world intervention. And this is the turn. The real mystery is not one simple question. It is three mysteries stacked on top of each other. The ancient Anunnaki are real in the record. The Sumerian King List really does give us impossible reigns and kingship from heaven. But the Nibiru, genetic engineering, and alien race book claims sit in a later, disputed layer. That separation is the key. Not because it makes the story smaller, because it shows exactly where the pressure points are. That does not erase the mystery. It makes the mystery more precise. If the King List is not ordinary chronology, what kind of knowledge was it preserving? Was it sacred mathematics, royal propaganda, memory of lost dynasties, or a signal from something older? If Sitchin saw a hidden astronomical code, why do the orbit numbers conflict with later claims? If the Anunnaki were only gods in myth, why do these texts still feel so technical, ordered, and cosmic? And if the alien race book is a real leak, where is the chain of custody? Those are not closed questions. They are better questions. Looking back, the strongest evidence is not all in one pile. It has different weights. The Anunnaki texts are ancient and real. The Sumerian King List is ancient and deeply strange. Sitchin's Nibiru framework is influential, modern, and disputed. The alien race book version is dramatic, specific, and still unverified. That is not a closed case. It is a map of what can be checked next. The ancient route asks us to read the tablets carefully. The astronomy route asks us to compare claims against actual sky surveys. The genetics route asks us to separate real ancient ancestry from extraordinary engineering claims. The provenance route asks the hardest documentary question. Where did this file come from? This subject reminds us that ancient names can survive thousands of years, then gather new meanings in every age that finds them. And if Nibiru is the door, the next layer is the question of who first opened it. I'm here to help you know what the record really says. Which part feels hardest to dismiss? The ancient Anunnaki texts, the Sumerian King List's impossible reigns, or the modern Nibiru claims? Keep looking up and keep asking what the record really says.